The screams from the arena died down as Vex Thar raised his four-fingered hand. The massive alien's purple skin gleamed under the harsh lighting of the training pit, his yellow eyes narrowing as he scanned the 20 contestants below. 19 alien species and 1 human stood in a semicircle, all breathing heavily from the previous exercise. "Silence," Vex commanded, his voice booming through the underground facility. "The next trial requires absolute focus." Howard Ingram wiped sweat from his brow, trying to control his breathing like the others. At 32, he was the first and only human to be accepted into the Galactic Combat Academy, a prestigious training ground for elite warriors across the Milky Way. He'd fought hard for this opportunity, leaving Earth behind for what many considered a suicide mission. Vex's assistant, a thin, gray-skinned being named Lyra, moved between the contestants, distributing small metal discs. "Place these on your primary communication organs," Vex instructed. "They will monitor your ability to maintain silence under duress." Howard placed the cold metal against his throat, feeling it adhere to his skin with an uncomfortable pinch. Around him, aliens did the same, attaching the devices to various body parts' throats, foreheads, even abdominal cavities. "The trial begins now," Vex announced. "You will face the Ravager, make any vocal sound, and you fail." A collective tension rippled through the group. The Ravager was infamous, a genetically engineered predator designed to instill fear. Howard had only seen footage of the creature, but that had been enough to give him nightmares. Metal doors at the far end of the circular pit slid open with a hydraulic hiss. Howard's heart hammered against his ribs as red eyes glowed in the darkness beyond. The Ravager emerged 3 meters of sleek, black-scaled muscle, 6 limbs ending in razor claws, and a mouth full of serrated teeth arranged in concentric circles. It moved with unnatural speed, its head swiveling to assess the group. Howard's instinct screamed at him to run, but training kept him rooted in place. The creature stalked forward, its barbed tail sweeping behind it. Without warning, it lunged at a bulky, rock-skinned alien 2 spaces from Howard. The alien raised its arms defensively, but made no sound as the Ravager's claws raked across its chest, leaving deep gouges. The creature moved methodically through the group, testing each contestant. Some it merely sniffed, others it attacked with sudden violence. 3 contestants had already failed, crying out in pain or fear, their discs flashing red before they were escorted from the pit. Howard felt sweat dripping down his back as the Ravager approached. It paused before him, its head tilting with what looked like curiosity. Humans were rare in this sector, and Howard knew he was being assessed as much for his species as for his individual capabilities. The Ravager's breath was hot and fetid on Howard's face. He stared into its eyes, refusing to flinch as one clawed hand rose toward him. Pain exploded across Howard's cheek as the creature slashed him. He bit the inside of his mouth, tasting blood, but remained silent. The Ravager struck again, this time raking claws down his arm, tearing through his training suit and into flesh. Howard's vision blurred with tears of pain, but he focused on his breathing, refusing to make a sound. The absurdity of the situation suddenly hit him standing silently while a monster from a horror movie tried to make him scream. A bubble of laughter rose in his chest, inappropriate and unstoppable. He tried to suppress it, but the more he fought, the stronger it grew. Through the pain and fear, Howard began to laugh. It started as a quiet chuckle that quickly grew into full-bodied laughter that echoed through the pit. The sound was so unexpected, so out of place, that the Ravager backed away, its head lowering in confusion. "Silence," Vex roared from above. "Human, control yourself or be eliminated." Howard couldn't stop. The laughter poured out of him, loud and defiant, bouncing off the walls of the training pit. The other contestants stared in disbelief, their own silence maintained despite their clear shock. The Ravager circled Howard, agitated and uncertain. It had been trained to inspire fear, to test resolve through intimidation and pain. Laughter was not in its programming. "I said silence," Vex bellowed again, his voice thundering through the speakers. Howard's laughter continued, now with a hint of hysteria. Blood ran down his arm and face, yet he laughed. The sound filled the space, drowning out even the low growls of the confused predator. The Ravager made another pass at the group, but its movements were erratic now, disturbed by the continuing sound. It slashed at a tall, blue-skinned alien who hissed in pain, failing the test. Howard's laughter finally began to subside as exhaustion and blood loss took their toll. He swayed on his feet but remained standing, a grin still plastered on his face. When the Ravager returned to its enclosure, only 11 contestants remained, Howard among them. His disc had never flashed red laughter, apparently didn't count as the kind of vocalization the test was designed to detect. Vex descended into the pit, his massive form towering over the survivors. He stopped before Howard, yellow eyes narrowed to slits. "Human," he said, his voice low and dangerous, "you were ordered to maintain silence." Howard met his gaze, still breathing hard. "With respect, sir, you said any vocal sound would result in failure. My disc didn't register a fail." Vex looked to Lyra, who consulted her data pad. "The human is technically correct, Commander. The discs were calibrated to detect distress calls, screams, and verbal communication. Laughter was not included in the parameters." A murmur ran through the observing trainers and officials in the viewing gallery above the pit. Vex's face contorted with what Howard recognized as the alien equivalent of frustration. "The purpose of the test," Vex said slowly, "was to assess your ability to maintain discipline under pressure." "I did maintain discipline," Howard replied, wincing as he became more aware of his injuries. "I didn't run, I didn't fight back, and I didn't make any sounds of distress. I just found a different way to manage the pain." Vex stared at him for a long moment, then turned to address all the survivors. "Report to medical. We reconvene in 6 hours for the next trial." As medical drones descended to attend to the injured contestants, Vex pulled Howard aside. "Your response to the Ravager was unexpected." Howard nodded. "On Earth we have a saying, laugh in the face of danger. Sometimes it's the only way to stay sane. The Ravager has faced thousands of contestants across 50 years of training. None have responded as you did. It was unsettling to the creature." "I didn't plan it," Howard admitted. "It just happened." Vex studied him. "Perhaps there is more to humans than our intelligence reports suggested, but do not mistake my curiosity for leniency, Ingram. Future trials will test more than your ability to remain silent." Howard nodded. "I look forward to it, sir." As he was led away for medical treatment, Howard noticed the other contestants watching him with new interest. The blue-skinned alien who had failed the test approached him. "I am Krex," he said in careful standard. "What you did." "I have never seen such a response to fear." "It wasn't planned," Howard repeated. "Sometimes humans laugh when we're scared or in pain. It's a weird quirk." "Your laughter," Krex said. "It was louder than any battle cry I have heard. The Ravager feared you." Howard started to object, then stopped. Maybe there was something to that. The Ravager had seemed genuinely disturbed by his reaction. "Get some rest, human," Krex advised. "Vex will not forget this. He will design something special for you next time." Howard wasn't sure if that was a warning or a compliment, but he nodded his thanks. In the medical bay, Howard sat still as a medical drone stitched the gash on his face. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving him shaky and nauseous. The wound on his arm had been deeper than he'd realized, requiring synthetic tissue grafts and antibacterial treatments. "First human to make it this far," commented the medical officer, a squat, orange-skinned alien with 6 eyes. "Most species don't last a week in Vex's program." "How long have you been running this academy?" Howard asked, trying to distract himself from the pain. "The academy has existed for over 3 centuries by your Earth time. Vex has been head trainer for 30 years. He's the best and the cruelest." "Why does he hate humans so much?" The medical officer shrugged his wide shoulders. "Vex distrusts all new species until they prove themselves. Humans are very new to the galactic community." Howard remembered the first contact just 8 years ago, an alien ship landing in the middle of Central Park. Earth had been thrust into a vast, ancient galactic civilization overnight. Most humans were still adjusting to the reality of alien life, while Howard had chosen to dive headfirst into their world. "Rest now," the medical officer said. "You'll need your strength." Howard lay back on the medical bed, his mind racing despite his exhaustion. He'd passed the test, but he'd also drawn unwanted attention. Vex would be watching him closely now, waiting for him to fail. 6 hours later, Howard stood with the other 10 survivors in a different training area, a sprawling obstacle course that seemed to defy physics, with platforms floating at odd angles and sections where gravity itself appeared altered. Vex stood before them, his expression unreadable. The silence trial was merely the beginning. Now we test your adaptability and teamwork. You will navigate the course in pairs. Howard glanced around, wondering who he'd be paired with. "Ingram," Vex called. "You will work with Drex." A massive, beetle-like alien stepped forward, mandibles clicking. Howard recognized him as one of the top performers in previous trials, strong, fast, and utterly humorless. "The human laugher and the serious Viridian," someone murmured. "Vex is playing games." Drex towered over Howard, his exoskeleton gleaming blue-black under the lights. "I will not fail because of you, human," he said, his voice surprisingly soft for his size. "I don't plan to fail either," Howard replied. The pairs were positioned at different entry points to the course. Howard and Drex stood before a narrow bridge that seemed to be made of energy rather than solid matter. "Begin," Vex commanded. Drex immediately stepped onto the bridge, his weight causing it to flicker but hold. "Come, human, move quickly." Howard followed, feeling the strange sensation of the energy bridge beneath his feet, not quite solid, not quite liquid. They crossed to the first platform where a holographic puzzle appeared. "Solve it," Drex ordered. Howard studied the puzzle, a complex pattern of interlocking shapes that needed to be rearranged. "I think we need to no time for thinking," Drex interrupted, reaching for the hologram. "Wait," Howard tried to stop him, but Drex had already manipulated the first piece. Alarms blared, and the platform beneath them tilted sharply. Howard grabbed a handrail as Drex scrabbled for purchase, his claws failing to find grip on the smooth surface. Without thinking, Howard lunged forward, catching one of Drex's limbs before he could slide off the platform into the dark pit below. "Hold on," Howard grunted, straining against the alien's weight. Drex's multiple eyes blinked in surprise. "You should have let me fall. You would advance faster alone." "That's not how I work," Howard gasped, pulling with all his strength. The platform continued to tilt until it was nearly vertical. Howard's muscles screamed in protest as he held onto both the rail and the alien. Just when he thought he would lose his grip, the platform suddenly righted itself. "Puzzle solved through cooperation," announced an automated voice. "Proceed." Drex climbed back onto the platform, regarding Howard with what might have been respect. "You are stronger than you appear." "And you're heavier than you look," Howard replied with a strained smile. They continued through the course, facing increasingly difficult challenges. Howard's quicker problem-solving complemented Drex's physical strength. They weren't the fastest pair, but they worked through each obstacle methodically. As they approached the final challenge, Howard noticed Vex watching them closely from an observation booth. "The last test requires perfect timing," Drex explained, pointing to a series of platforms that appeared and disappeared in a complex pattern. "We must cross simultaneously." Howard studied the pattern, trying to memorize it. "On my mark, then." They waited for the right moment, then sprinted across, leaping from platform to platform. Howard's foot slipped on the last jump, and he began to fall. This time it was Drex who reached out, catching him with a powerful limb and hauling him to safety. "Now we are even, human," Drex said. They reached the finish point, the third pair to complete the course. Vex approached them, his expression neutral. "Acceptable performance," he said, "though I note you took unnecessary risks to assist each other." "With respect, sir," Howard replied, "I don't consider helping my partner to be unnecessary." "Survival sometimes requires sacrifice," Vex countered. "Survival, maybe," Howard agreed, "but success requires cooperation." Drex clicked his mandibles. "The human speaks wisdom, Commander." "Had he not aided me, neither of us would have completed the course." Vex regarded them both silently, then moved on to assess the next finishing pair. "You have earned my respect, Howard Ingram," Drex said quietly. "Few would have risked themselves for a Viridian they just met." "On Earth, we call it common decency," Howard replied. "On Viridia, we call it the binding honor. It is rare to find it in other species." Their conversation was cut short as Vex called the remaining contestants together. Only 8 pairs had finished the course, the others had either fallen or given up. "You have all shown adequate skills," Vex announced. "Tomorrow's trial will test your limits further. Dismissed." As the group dispersed, Howard noticed a tall, green-skinned alien watching him. She approached with fluid grace, her 4 arms held in what he recognized as a gesture of respect. "I am Zira," she introduced herself. "Your performance today was impressive, human." "Thank you," Howard replied, "though I think Drex did most of the heavy lifting, literally." "Not that," Zira said. "Your laughter during the silence trial. I have trained with Vex for 2 cycles, and I have never seen the Ravager retreat." "It was just a reaction," Howard explained, uncomfortable with the attention. "Perhaps," Zira said, "but it has made many here reconsider humans. We thought your kind too fragile, too emotional for combat training. And now we wonder what other surprises you might reveal." Howard wasn't sure how to respond to that. He was saved from having to answer by an announcement over the facility's communication system. "All trainees report to the gathering hall for evening meal and briefing." The gathering hall was a vast space with tables arranged by species to accommodate different dietary needs and eating methods. Howard sat at the small section designated for oxygen-breathing omnivores, joined by Zira and 2 other compatible aliens. As they ate, Howard became aware of conversations around him, many focused on his performance in the trials. He tried to ignore the attention, focusing instead on the strange but not unpleasant food synthesized proteins and vegetables designed to be nutritionally complete for his physiology. "The betting pool has shifted," Zira mentioned casually. "Your odds of completing the program have improved dramatically." "There's betting on us?" Howard asked, surprised. "Of course, the trainers, the support staff, even some of the more established trainees, it's tradition." "What were my odds before?" 100 to 1 against. "Now you're at 20 to 1, Howard snorted. "Still not great. Better than any human before you." After the meal, Vex addressed the remaining contestants. "Tomorrow's trial will test your endurance and mental fortitude. I suggest you all rest while you can." Howard returned to his quarters, a small, utilitarian room adjusted for human comfort standards. He checked his wounds, which were healing well thanks to the advanced medical treatment, then lay down on his bed, exhaustion finally catching up with him. He dreamed of the Ravager, of falling from platforms, of Vex's disapproving yellow eyes. In his dreams, his laughter turned to screams, but no one came to help him. He woke early, drenched in sweat but feeling more resolved than ever. He would complete this program, not just for himself, but for all humans who might follow. The next trial was indeed brutal, a 20-kilometer run through terrain that shifted unpredictably, from scorching desert to freezing tundra, all within a massive environmental simulator. 4 more contestants dropped out, unable to continue. Howard pushed through, his legs burning, his lungs aching, but he refused to quit. When he finally crossed the finish line, he collapsed to his knees, vision swimming. "The human completes the course," he heard Vex announce dispassionately. Surprising. The days blurred together as trial followed trial. Howard's body adapted, growing stronger faster. He formed alliances with Drex and Zira, the 3 of them often working together when team exercises were required. 2 weeks into the program, only 12 contestants remained from the original 40. Howard had earned a grudging respect from most of the aliens and trainers, but Vex remained impossible to please. The final week brought the most challenging trials yet. Howard fought through simulated combat scenarios, navigated deadly trap-filled mazes, and endured psychological tests designed to break even the strongest minds. Through it all, he maintained his humanity, refusing to abandon his principles even when it might have been easier. And sometimes, when things were at their worst, He would laugh, not the hysterical laughter of that first day, but a deliberate reminder to himself that fear could be faced. The final trial arrived on the 30th day. The remaining 8 contestants stood in the original training pit, now modified to include various terrain features and obstacles. "Today," Vex announced, "you face each other. Only 4 will advance to become full members of the Academy." Howard looked at his fellow contestants Drex, Zira, and 5 others who had survived this far. They had all earned his respect and he theirs. "The rules are simple," Vex continued. "Incapacitate your opponents by any means necessary. Lethal force is not permitted, but everything short of that is acceptable." Howard was paired against a lithe, reptilian alien named Slex, known for his speed and viciousness. They faced each other across a section of the pit designed to resemble a rocky outcropping. "Begin," Vex commanded. Slex moved with blinding speed, closing the distance between them in seconds. Howard barely had time to dodge the first strike, a slashing attack aimed at his throat. Howard had learned much in the past month. He rolled with the momentum, coming up in a fighting stance that incorporated techniques from Earth martial arts and alien combat forms he'd studied. Slex hissed, circling him. "You have improved, human, but you are still outmatched." Howard didn't waste breath responding. He feinted left, then struck right, landing a solid blow to Slex's midsection. The alien grunted but seemed barely affected. The fight continued, Howard taking as many hits as he landed. His ribs ached from a particularly vicious kick, and blood trickled from a cut above his eye. Slex grew more confident, pressing his advantage. "Submit, human, you cannot win." Howard backed away, seemingly retreating. Slex followed, eager to finish the fight. As the reptilian alien lunged forward, Howard sidestepped and used Slex's momentum against him, sending him crashing into a rocky formation. Slex recovered quickly, but now he was angry, his movements less controlled. Howard capitalized on this, maintaining his discipline while his opponent grew increasingly frustrated. "Why do you not yield?" Slex demanded after Howard withstood another punishing series of attacks. Howard wiped blood from his face. "Because I'm still standing." Something in his tone must have unnerved Slex, because the alien hesitated. In that moment of uncertainty, Howard struck, executing a complex takedown maneuver he'd learned from Drex. Slex hit the ground hard, and Howard immediately applied pressure to a nerve cluster at the base of the alien's neck, a vulnerable point in his species. Slex struggled, then went limp, signaling his surrender. Howard released him and stood, breathing heavily. Around the pit, the other contests were concluding their own battles. Drex had emerged victorious, as had Zira. The 4th victor was a massive, stone-skinned alien named Gorks. Vex descended into the pit, regarding the 4 winners with an appraising eye. "You have all demonstrated the necessary skills to join the Academy. However, there is one final test." Howard tensed. After everything they'd been through, what more could Vex demand? "You must now face me," Vex declared. "Not in combat, but in a test of will." He approached Howard first. "Human. You have survived trials designed to break beings far stronger than yourself." "How?" Howard met his gaze steadily. "By remembering why I'm here, sir, to prove that humans belong among the stars as equals. And if I were to tell you that you have failed, that despite your performance, humans are not welcome in my academy." Howard felt a surge of anger but controlled it. "Then I would leave, knowing I had done everything possible, and find another way to achieve my goal." Vex nodded, moving on to question each of the others in turn. When he had finished, he addressed them as a group. "The true test of a warrior is not their strength or skill, but their purpose. Why do you fight? What drives you to endure? These questions matter more than any physical trial." He paused, looking at each of them. "All of you have demonstrated worthy purpose. You are accepted into the Galactic Combat Academy as full recruits." A sense of relief washed over Howard. He had done it, completed what many had thought impossible. As the group prepared to leave the pit, Vex stopped Howard. "A moment, Ingram." Howard waited as the others departed. Vex studied him with those unreadable yellow eyes. "Your method of overcoming the Ravager was unorthodox," Vex said finally. As I said then, sir, it wasn't planned. Perhaps not. But it revealed something important about humans. You find strength in the unexpected, in chaos, in emotion. Howard considered this. We're adaptable, we've had to be to survive on Earth. It is a quality that could serve the Academy well, Vex admitted, if properly channeled. Is that why you pushed me so hard, to see if I would break or adapt? Vex's mouth curved in what might have been a smile. Partially, I also needed to know if you would abandon your principles under pressure. Many do. And you did not. Even when it would have been easier, you maintained your core values. This, too, is valuable. Vex extended a four-fingered hand. Welcome to the Academy, Howard Ingram. I expect you to continue surprising us. Howard shook the offered hand, still somewhat stunned by the unexpected approval. One question, sir, Howard said. That first day with the Ravager, what would have happened if I'd failed? You would have been escorted from the facility and returned to Earth, your opportunity lost. So my laughter really did save me. Vex made a sound that Howard recognized as the alien version of a chuckle. Perhaps, or perhaps you would have found another way. That is what makes your species interesting, your unpredictability. Howard left the pit with a new understanding. His laughter in the face of the Ravager hadn't been just a quirk of human psychology, it had been a demonstration of humanity's greatest strength. The ability to find unexpected solutions, to respond to fear and pain in ways that transformed them into something else. As he joined the other successful recruits for the formal induction ceremony, Howard thought about all the humans who might follow him into the stars. They would face their own Ravagers, their own tests of will and strength. Some would fail, but others would find their own unexpected responses, their own versions of laughter in the dark. The ceremony was brief but meaningful. Each recruit received an emblem signifying their new status. When it was Howard's turn, Vex himself presented the insignia. Remember, Ingram, he said quietly, sometimes the loudest roar is not the most effective. Your laughter that day, it echoed louder than any battle cry because it was genuine, not performed. Howard accepted the emblem with pride. I'll remember, sir. Afterward, as the new recruits celebrated their achievement, Drex approached Howard. You have brought honor to your species, Howard Ingram. I hope so, Howard replied. This is just the beginning. Zira joined them, her four arms carrying drinks suitable for each of their physiologies. To new warriors, she toasted, and to unexpected strengths. They drank together, three beings from vastly different worlds, united by what they had endured and overcome. Later that night, as Howard prepared for his first rest as an official Academy recruit, he received a message on his communication device. It was from Vex. Your training begins in earnest tomorrow. Be prepared for challenges beyond what you have faced thus far, and Ingram, remember that laughter. It may serve you again when strength and skill are not enough. Howard smiled, setting the device aside. Whatever came next, he was ready. He had proven not just that he belonged here, but that humanity had something valuable to offer the galactic community, a different perspective, a unique approach to adversity. As he drifted towards sleep, Howard thought he heard the distant roar of the Ravager, still confused by the human who had laughed in its face. The sound no longer frightened him. Instead, it reminded him of what he had discovered about himself, about his species, about the power of an unexpected response to fear. In the silence of his quarters, Howard Ingram smiled, knowing that tomorrow would bring new challenges, new opponents, new opportunities to demonstrate that sometimes the best answer to darkness was not to fight it or flee from it, but to transform it with the simple, powerful act of laughter.